Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you tuning in today. What we're going to do today is we're going to slip off into this buy bank right here, and based on some of the information that we learned last year from hunting here, we're going to show you how to set up an early season stand for late season rut success. And so let's jump into the video and show you some tips and tactics of how to get that done. All right, guys, I want to show you what we've got. We came in here last year, which was the first year that we hunted this farm. And one of the things that I did, and this is a good tip for you, something that you could do, especially if you're hunting around ag fields with woods kind of on the outskirts of the ag fields. I came and parked my truck on the side of a turn row, and I just glassed. I just sat there and watched the edge of the woods and see where deer came out. I didn't know what these deer were doing. And so I just wanted to kind of see and scout from a distance. And while I was doing that, over here on this buy bank where we are right now, we've got the buy right here behind me, and then there's a gravel road right up here, and there are fields between here and a big block of timber. So I parked and I was just glassing, and up out of this buy bank, I saw about 6 or 7 does come out. And then I saw 3 different bucks, and there were bucks that were chasing does, and this was close to the rut. So what that did was that made me come down here and put a deer stand down here. And so last year, as we hunted it, there seemed to be a group of about 5 or 6 does and yearlings that stayed over here on this side of the crop fields, and pretty much bedded right up here to the north, and I'm going to show you that in a few minutes. But they were bedding up here, and we put some feed out here just to my left and set a camera up on it, and it was like clockwork. Those does and those yearlings were coming out consistently in the evening times from this bedding thicket to the feed, and then they would travel down this buy bank and go into some bigger ag fields kind of to our south. And so what that does is that helps us set up our stand this year for the deer activity next year. And so what we want to do is we want to go kind of look and see maybe where those deer were bedding at, and see if we can kind of get a good idea of what's happening down in this bottom before we reposition our stand for this coming up season. So let's go check out this bedding area. All right, let's walk through here. We got to be real careful for rattlesnakes. We might even find some sheds in here, you never know, but most probably by now the rats and squirrels have eaten them up. I'm more concerned about finding a rattlesnake. That right there behind me, that right there, that old stump, that'd be a great place to put a mineral lick right there. I've already got one right up here about 25 yards, but that right there would be a great spot. Holds a little water a lot, and it's on that stump, so we might do that. But I want to show you something else too of where these deer can bed. I'm going to show you just the terrain up on the side of this bank. It's an embankment here. It goes up toward the gravel, but look at that gnarly stuff, man. Just vines and all kinds of stuff up there that those deer can bed in. And then when you look on this side over here, you can see that there's a blowdown, which is a tree that's been knocked down. And those trees and those tops like that are good for deer to bed behind. And so sometimes you find yourself walking through a spot and you jump a deer and you're like, where'd that deer come from? Well, they were laying down behind one of those blowdowns. And so that's just something to really look for. And there's like numerous of those out here in the middle of all this stuff. It's just thick, and it's on the edge of this buy bank. And so these deer bed in here, which is good for us. Let's keep looking. All right, I want to show you something again. See, here's the buy right here, and the gravel is just right there. I mean, it's probably not 30 yards. So basically what this is it pinches down right here, which would be a good pinch point. The only problem is you can't really get in here without spooking the deer that are bedded on both sides of this pinch point So it's better to just hunt down a little bit further and hope that they get there to you before dark, which they do because we've hunted it last year. But you can see, just look how thick all this is back behind us. It's just see, here's the thing about hunting these biobanks. They're not very wide, but they're usually extremely thick. And it's just a great place for big bucks to be bedded up out of sight. Nobody hardly hunts these ditch banks like this or these biobanks like this. But every year we hear about people killing big bucks just right on the side of the bye. And it's one of them situations where you may not see a ton of deer, but there's a chance that a big buck will be staged up or bedded up on the side of these biobanks and give you a good opportunity to kill him during the rut. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to our stand setup, and we're going to show you how we're setting up early season stand for late season rut success. So let's go show you how to do it. All right, guys, we've done all of our scouting. We've pretty much covered this north end of where these deer are bedding. And as you saw, it is extremely thick. It's a lot of blowdowns or tops that are laid on the ground for them to bed up in. It's a lot of briars. It's a lot of just all kinds of brush on this side, mainly on this ditch bank over here, and on the spoil bank of the bye, that those deer can just bed up and you can walk right by them and never see them. And so we know that the bedding area is this direction. We know that because we've just looked at it, but we also know that because we hunted there this past year and all of the deer came from this direction in the evenings, and so we know that that's where they're laid up at and they're bedded at. Now, deer tend to follow these bye banks, and so this is just really a good natural funnel in the first place, but there are some things that you need to key on in making this early season setup good for your late season success. The first thing that I would say, since it's legal here in Louisiana, what we want to do is we want to put some feed out. We're gonna feed in front of our stand, probably about 25 or 30 yards, and that's gonna hopefully keep these deer that are bedded here staged up in here before they go out to any of the bigger ag fields later on in the evening. And it seemed to work this past year when we did that. So that's the first thing. Use everything you can to your advantage. And if feeding is legal in your area and you choose to feed to kind of hold some deer in a certain spot, then by all means do that. That's what we do in a lot of our places, not all of them, but a lot of them we do. And so that's the first thing we want to take advantage of. Another thing we want to take advantage of in this particular area is the duck hunters. I just found this when I was walking through scouting. Right on the other side of this bye, there's a huge duck hunting operation, or multiple duck hunting operations, or people that duck hunt a lot. And so a lot of times that helps you, because when they start firing off those shots, it'll push those deer on this side of the bye where no one is duck hunting. And so that's just real helpful for us to push those deer on this side. So take advantage of that. When you hear all that shooting, be excited about that, because you know that could run some deer over on your side of the bayou, and it could force them to just lay up on your side of the bayou because they're shooting over there every day. And so that's another thing. The other thing that we want to mention is access. You want to make sure that you have the right access and the right wind direction. Right here is our access point, just right on the other side of this tree. We walk in, we drive past this spot, we go down and park at the end of a field, we walk back to this spot, and we just tip over this little area right here. We tip over and we walk in about 30 yards. So we're not spooking anything. And when you play the wind right and you have like a northeast wind or something of that nature, a north wind, that's perfect, because the only way those deer can smell you is if they walk out in the wide open across the gravel into that field and get around behind you. I'm not saying that they won't do that, because they do that sometimes here in Louisiana. I don't know about any other states, but most of the time they're not. They may circle around, which I had a deer circle around and come right next to my stand this past year, a big doe. And what she was doing was she was trying to circle around downwind side of the feed to smell everything. Well, she didn't get downwind of me because she would have had to gone out into the gravel to do that, and she didn't want to be in the wide open. So use that to your advantage. So here's how this kind of setup, early season, helps you for late season. You get your stand set up, you have the right wind, all of that. you put your feed out. You get that group of does that's already bedding on this side anyway. You get them used to coming to the feed, staging up in this particular area. And you put your camera out and you begin to monitor that camera. You begin to scout from long distance. You begin to watch and use your binoculars to see when the bucks start chasing the does. And when you start seeing the rut start to appear, then you want to come in here and you want to hunt. Because this group of does that are bedded here, at some point in time, one of them is going to come in. And there's going to be a buck, smell it. And that buck is going to want to be over here with that doe. And so if that doe is bedded here, early season, there are no bucks here, and usually there aren't in the early season, hardly any bucks here. But when the rut comes, all of a sudden the bucks start showing up. So if you've got your feed here, they're bedding here, they're staying here, staging up here, when the rut gets here, you're going to have a really good chance, if one of those does come into heat, that a buck will be coming along behind them. And so you want to be here during the rut. You may hunt for 2 months and not see anything but that group of does. But if you'll just be patient and wait and hunt when the wind is right, when you can sneak in, eventually that big buck, he's going to come behind that doe. And if she comes to the feed like she normally does, he's going to be trailing her and he's going to come right in and give you a shot. And so that's how you can take an early season setup and have it be successful in a late season rut situation. So be patient, set it up right, don't bother it, and just wait until the rut and get in here and kill you a big buck. So I hope that information helps you. I know it will if you'll try it. But keep tuning into the channel. Thank you so much for watching. And make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you can get the latest videos that we put out for you. Hopefully all of this is helping you become a better hunter in this upcoming season. So God bless. Remember, Jesus Christ is Lord and He loves you. Have a great day.